This is the Milo Beasley Show. This is the Milo Beasley Show. There's only one thing you need to know. This is the Milo Beasley Show. And now, here's your host, Milo Beasley.
And welcome to the Milo Beasley Show. Episode number, what are we at? 307? I think maybe even 308. I don't know. I'm losing count. I need an assistant here. I'm super stoked for this week's guest. So please help me welcome at this time. You know him as Justin Credible. Please help me welcome at this time PJ Polacco. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's raining outside, but I'm inside, so none of that is bothering me.
Well, it is hot on the East Coast, sunny, and when I just got home, I looked at the temperature on the car, and it's at 102 degrees. So thank God for air conditioning. Woo,
wow, where are you at? Where do you live?
Waterbury, Connecticut, which is about an hour and a half from New York City, just for reference point. So yeah, we're close to that central hub.
Yeah. So a warm day, but a rainy day over here. But
nice.
Yeah. So how have you been? I always like to ask, how have you been doing during this, the pandemic time, this downtime? It's been a struggle for a lot. So how have you been holding up?
I've been holding up as good as possible, staying busy.
Good.
As much as possible, just trying to. Now things are starting to happen, whereas more bookings, more people are opening up, running shows. Because in 2020, for a while there, when everything, it seemed like the whole world was on hold and on pause. It was very, very challenging. So I got a bunch of bookings in July and in August, and September. So things are really, really happy and happening, I should say.
That's awesome. Are you doing appearances? Are you wrestling as well?
I'm doing both. Doing both. Yeah. So
fantastic.
Even though I may have no business in the ring because I'm not in the best physical shape, I'm a bit fat to just get it all out there. But
blame it on the quarantine.
Exactly. Actually, everybody else does, so why don't I? And today, as a matter of fact, these past couple days going into Thursday, we're putting the finishing touches on the 2-year journey that has been the Credible documentary. It hit a snag last year where the executive producer, which I didn't know what these things meant, these terms, but executive producer basically means he's in charge and he's the money guy.
Right.
So he kind of got into it with somebody that was also working on it with us. The guy that pitched me the movie, he was in all kinds of financial disarray, and so long story short, the executive producer backed out, and this other gentleman that was working on the movie backed out. So we have a whole new crew, a legitimate production company this time, a Verdes production company, which has actually put out some big movies. Their latest one was The Vault with Theo Rossi. Chaz Palminteri, like some really Burt Young from Rocky. It's a gangster movie, so some really, Theo Rossi is from Sons of Anarchy. He played Juice. So and Chaz Palminteri, we all know he was the gangster Sonny in the Bronx.
In the Bronx Tale, right? Yeah. What?
So yeah. So and I was in that movie in a fight scene out of it. We filmed it in a legit prison. So it was cool, and now these are the people that are putting out my documentary. So financially, it's exciting because they're a real company and they're picking up, the proper expenses and whatnot. So yeah, it's finally we're going to finish it up and hopefully have it on. We've been talking to Hulu to possibly sell the rights over to them, and hopefully by the end of this year, beginning of next, it'll finally be out there. So I'm so excited.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations and good luck with that, especially on Hulu, man. Hulu has put out a ton of things.
Yeah, so, it'll be exciting.
So what got you into professional wrestling? Like, at what point were you like, this is what I'm going to do?
I was a kid, always a fan. And when I was about 15, 16, started wrestling in the backyard, I think like a lot of us do. And I was. You were one of those?
Nice. Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that. But I started to notice, I was an athlete in high school, about 190 pounds. I'm 6 foot tall. So I knew I had the physical ability, and I could move. I was an athlete. I could jump and do drop kicks and stuff like that in the backyard. I was like, and I knew how to sell and all that, because just, mimic the wrestlers. What do they do? You do it. That's the attitude I came at it with. So at some point I was like, well, I went to a Catholic high school. It was a college prep school, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I mean, at 17 years old, how many 17-year-olds really know what they want to do for the rest of their lives, right?
Right.
So I was like, I'm really passionate about pro wrestling. There was no internet back then, so I was reading all the sheets and stuff like that. So on break, I worked at Stop and Shop grocery stores. I was a bag boy. And during my break, I went to read one of the magazines, have a soda, some chips, and I'm in the aisle, going through wrestling magazines. And for the first time, I saw an advertisement. It said, Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp, Dare to be Great. And I was like, huh, okay. Because before, it was still a lot of kayfabe. There wasn't...
Right.
You didn't know how to talk to somebody, how to get into the business. Everybody treated you like a mark. If you weren't brought in, or if you didn't know somebody, you were straight up treated like a mark, which I was, but I called the number that was, on this advertisement. And lo and behold, a year later, 1992, I went out there in the summertime, paid $3,000, and was there for 2 months and got my training to be a pro wrestler, which was the greatest decision I ever made, as far as going to Calgary and training with those guys, Brett and Owen's brothers, the Harts.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a big jump to go to. I mean, well, it is Canada and it's right up north, to go to another country to train to be a wrestler. And I mean, and then obviously that's where you met Lance Storm for the first time, right?
Absolutely. He had come through the Hart camp the year before, him and Jericho. So the Harts, when I came through, weren't really, they were on the outside teaching, but they were older, so they're not in the ring taking bumps themselves.
Right.
So Lance was one, since he'd been through the camp before, and he was still an up and comer, was the one in there kind of showing everybody what to do. Keith would say it physically, Lance would do it Keith would say it verbally, Lance would do it physically. So a lot of my training, you could say, came down from Lance. In essence, I always say the Harts because that's the name. Hell, I paid the $3,000. I'm going to use that name, right? But in reality, Lance Storm was the one that trained me. I just, paid Keith Hart.
Right. You were saying, you use the Hart brothers name. Did you use that when you were trying to get your foot into the WWF the first time around?
Yeah, the first time around, I did use the Hart Brothers name. I mean, that's really what it was about, right? And it worked in my favor. The first time I went to a WWE show was a house show in Connecticut, in a small arena that they used to go to all the time. Doesn't exist anymore. The New Haven Coliseum. I went there, and that was like one of the, and if not the first. Obviously, I introduced myself and told them my name. But the second thing I said was I was trained by the Harts. Bret Hart was there and Owen Hart were at that show. So, it kind of, it was a nice little smooth way to start conversation. And from the stories, all the producers, what we called agents back then, they call them producers today, but former wrestlers, the old timers that are there to help you put matches together and so. So Tony Gurria, after I watched the show backstage, very kind of like, thank you, sir, for your hospitality, letting me, watch the show and get an opportunity to meet everyone. If you ever need me, I'm available, as a job guy or whatever,
Right.
And Tony Gurria gives me his card and he says, well, we're starting a new show in a couple of months called Monday Night Raw. We're going to be taping it every other week in Manhattan. Because if you're interested, we'll pay you $150 per show. Come down, we'll use you. So, the next, I believe it was like the second ever Raw. I went out there and I worked with Lex Luger. So that was my debut on the WWE was on Monday Night Raw versus Lex Luger, and that's how it all started,
That's awesome. And then how long from the time that you started working with them doing, extra work or enhancement work up until you became Aldo Montoya?
I would say a little over a year,
Okay.
because I signed my first contract in August of 1994. And I'm not sure when the gimmick actually debuted, but I
Right.
would assume it was the winter. It was either 94 or the beginning of 95. So I'm closer to thinking it was like November of 94 is when I first got my first match as Aldo. Because I remember it was cold and it was in Bushkill, Pennsylvania. And yeah, so I would say around that time, but it was amazing. I mean, it was a really great, I'm 21 years old,
Right.
signed to the WWF. It was surreal. You know what I mean? Just a couple of
Right.
years ago. I mean, I graduated, to put it into perspective, graduated high school in 1991, trained in 92. Now I'm with the WWE, so WWE, but then it was WWF, so I always
Right.
jump, but everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was, man, things just took off from that moment, as Aldo, although the character, wasn't over, or, it's kind of goofy, the look of it all. But, at the end of the day, man, I traveled the world with it. I traveled the world. I got to work with probably some of the greatest wrestlers, Kurt Hennig, the
Right.
original, the Undertaker, Yokozuna, the
Right. Jerry
Harts,
Lawler. Uh,
Lawler, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, you name it, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, IRS, Mike Rotunda. I mean, everybody. I mean, you name it, I've wrestled them. So Bob Backlund,
Right.
Diesel, Hunter, Savio Vega, Goldust. I mean, I can go up and down.
Right.
I usually go with who haven't I
Right.
wrestled, because seriously, you'll probably closer to that. I haven't wrestled Hogan, and I never wrestled Flair. Let's put it to you that way. But yeah, it was great. Like I said, I traveled the world and I got to really learn. You know what I'm saying? As a young wrestler, to do house shows and travel the entire country. I remember one of the most educational and coolest things I've ever done was did a tour of Europe and some other neighboring countries for 30 days straight as Aldo in 95. I mean, literally it felt like we did every single town in Germany. And then we did like Zurich, Switzerland, and Sweden and Belgium. And, those are obviously outside of Germany, but
Right.
surrounding areas. It was so cool. And just to be on a bus and have that lifestyle where they have the hotels for you and you're in and out of the tour bus. And it was just so educational, so much fun, so many parties. The chicks would follow you, follow the bus, the hotel, because it was one of the first times we really started to tour that way, internationally for the
Right.
WWE. So it was like, this is what, you think about when you're a kid, all this iteration and fans, the fanfare was just so cool. I mean, I was young, I wasn't committed or married, so I'm just having a blast, having a
Right.
blast,
Now, I
you
mean, and
know.
you say it's goofy character, goofy look, but still, I mean, people to this day know who Aldo Montoya is. So I
Yeah,
think that says something about the character, like you said,
sure.
you wrestled everybody. So there was a little bit of longevity there. And so then after that, how did you end up in ECW then?
It was, let me see, we're talking 97. So
Right.
things, I started to really come into my own, in the WWE. And Razor Ramon and Kevin Nash, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, they went to WCW. I was good friends with them. And I was not happy with what the WWE was doing with me. And I'd really started to come into my own as a performer. And Scott Hall and Kevin had gone to WCW. And I went to Vince and I said, Vince, I'm 23. And the WWE needed new guys. So I'm like, I really feel like I can help the company. And I think the time is right to perhaps change my gimmick, take the mask off, maybe go away and come back as someone else. And he agreed. And, along those lines, he sent me to Memphis to work Jerry Lawler's territory, the USWA. And that was kind of their developmental at the time. And he said,
Okay.
go down there for 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks, we'll bring you back up as a heel. And I remember Dwayne Johnson, a young Dwayne Johnson, was also down in Memphis at the time, right before he came up as well. So, anyways, long story short, it really wasn't working for me down there, and the money was horrific. Even though WWE was paying me $500 a week, and I was getting $400 per match in the USWA, I was renting 2 apartments, one at home, one in Tennessee. I had a rental car on the road, and I'm paying a car payment in Connecticut. So basically, I got 2 sets of bills, and the money is not covering it all. You know what I mean? $2,000 a month from the WWE is not going to cover all that I just said. So I'm going into any savings I had put aside. So I left after 6 weeks, and I basically said to Vince, if you don't want to do anything with me or have nothing for me, which he still hadn't at the time, he goes, I want my request to go to WCW. And, I was like, because Scott and Kevin were ready to get me a job down there, and give me a fresh start. Vince didn't want to have another one of his guys go down there. It wasn't that Aldo would have gone down there. It wouldn't. I would be another character. But Vince is like, just the perception of other one of my guys going down there is no good. So then I had talked to Chris Candido because my last show in Memphis, ECW was doing the invasion angle with USWA, because if you remember, Lawler had a feud with Heyman and Dreamer, and they were down there. So I talked to Chris Candido, who was with the WWE prior to going to ECW. Same kind of thing. And long story short, Paul wouldn't let me go to WCW, but let me go to ECW to work with Paul. So I signed a contract to work for Paul Heyman in 1997, which was one of the best decisions I'd ever made.
That was awesome. And then, so who came up with the name Just Incredible? And then obviously the look, like did you decide, I want to shave my head to be different, or did they recommend, hey, let's do something different?
No, it was the name was theirs. They came up with the name. And myself, I was just trying to be a little bit of myself and try to do a little bit of Razor, try to be a little HBK, a little Stone Cold. I was just trying to mix characters. The beard and the shaving of the head I had done actually before, while I was still Aldo. I had shaved because I was losing my hair. I was going completely bald, male pattern baldness, and it started to look really bad, especially with the mask. There was a hole up top, so you could see a big receding hairline, the crown in the back and stuff. It looked horrible. So Razor at one point had said, "Just shave it off, pussy," So I'm like, okay, so I shaved it off, but And the jean shorts was sort of a mistake. Not a mistake, but Paul wanted me to debut like in a week. And I had nothing to wear other than the Aldo stuff. I had yellow boots, red and green tights. And I'm like, that's not going to work. So I put on what we call the ECW uniform. And at the time, that was an ECF and W t-shirt and a pair of jean shorts, because Raven had done it. A bunch of other people had done the jean shorts, Balls Mahoney, Axel. So I just kind of followed suit, put on, and it was just because what else am I going to do, right? Or I would do that, or like plain black spandex, which would not have done me any favors. So this way we did that, and it just simply went from there. On the character, I just every time I went out there, I would try something different, and it took me about six good months to get it. The way people saw it in its heyday, the gimmick itself. It took me about 6 months to get there, but every time, like, that's the wonderful thing about ECW, is they allow you to kind of mess around a little bit to see exactly what works, what didn't work. So after that process was completed, I had full kind of control of what I could do or wanted to do in my presentations.
That's, I don't want to say that's incredible, but it kind of is, to be able to get that sort of freedom. And for your look, the black tights with the jean shorts and stuff. I can say I am guilty of imitating that look in the late 90s as well.
Right on.
So, I was a super, super huge fan of ECW at the time, and I was a super huge fan of yours and the things that you were doing.
Oh, wow.
And so I can say I definitely emulated your look from time to time during my. I first started wrestling in '98. So it was around that
Okay.
time, you had
Yep.
already, establishing yourself and
Yep.
yeah, I definitely borrowed a look here or there.
That's awesome. That's cool to hear. Definitely.
And then, so how did, fast forwarding a little bit to the Impact players, how did
Mm.
you began teaming with Lance Storm? Who was it? A suggestion of Paul? Was it a suggestion of yours? Is this something that just organically happened?
I honestly don't remember fully. I know that it just kind of happened generically. Really, I remember Paul hearing that we had trained to get, well, that we both had come from the Hart, that he had a hand in training me. So I think we did it at first, just a couple of times. I think like it might have been, I was having a singles feud with someone and he was having a singles feud with someone else. So, let's put them together against, you know what I mean? It was almost like a way to
Right.
take two singles matches and put them together into a tag. And I guess that happened a couple of times, maybe a weekend or two. And Paul really liked it. The fans seemed to really like it. And we didn't have a name in mind as far as being called the Impact Players. That was all
Right.
Paul. And I wasn't crazy about it as well. And even to be honest, the Justin Incredible character name, I wasn't crazy about it. I thought,
No.
Paul, this isn't going to work. It's way too gimmicky. But at the time, I was, this is something like, it's like Spark Plug. I felt like a kind of a corny, you know what I mean, gimmick,
Right.
if that makes any sense, you know.
No, it
So
makes
because
100%.
that was the
Right. Yeah.
era, right? Because that era especially was like everybody take themselves super serious, and people are using their real names now, and to come out with the name Just Incredible was like, but it worked. So I was very fortunate, got very lucky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, so obviously being in ECW during that time, you worked, you train at the Hearts, you worked for the WWE, and now you're in there in ECW where things are insane. Was there any point that you were like, oh man, like I just got rocked and I have to like try to finish this match?
Yeah. Oh yeah, very many times, too many times, and that's where I think to this day I have very many neurological issues. Because back then concussions were, it wasn't like it is today, where now there's
Right.
concussion protocol, and if you get a concussion, you have to take 6 weeks off, and they're very careful after all the research and some things have come out about how serious concussions are. I remember on a Thursday night wrestling Jerry Lynn, and he did a power bomb off the top rope to me and completely knocked me out. Um, and I was, I threw up. I was completely out of it. Don't remember anything. Don't remember finishing the match.
Right.
And not only did I have to travel 6 hours, I had to also uh, wrestle. So Friday I was in Queens. Paul had me wrestling the day after, and I told him, I'm
Right.
like, Paul, there is no way. I could barely see straight, and I'm being legitimate.
Right.
I can't wrestle. So he gave me the night off, only to Saturday wrestle Jerry Lynn for 30 minutes in a 2 out of 3 falls match at the ECW arena.
Well,
And I'll never forget it. If you look back at that match, literally, even the smallest roll or any jarring of my body,
right.
anything I was holding my head. I was in so much pain. I could not see straight. That I remember I had a Volkswagen stick shift. And my wife also worked for ECW. She worked merchandise. She sold T-shirts for the company, and had to stock them, store them, put them on the truck, unload
Right.
that stuff. So, anyways, she couldn't drive stick, so I had to drive, and literally every 15 minutes, I had to pull the car over. We're on the Jersey Turnpike, which was one of the biggest highways in America, like traffic wise, like a ton of traffic, traveling through this, up to New York City and whatnot. Just horrific at pulling over, puking, going to a rest area, maybe try to sleep for a half hour. And you're not even
Right.
supposed to sleep with concussions, right? You're supposed
Right.
to stay up. So it was a nightmare. I'll never forget it. And that's the problem to this day now. I am very easy. They call it having a glass jaw. I get knocked out so easy, bro. There are certain things I just cannot do or cannot take, big bumps where I whiplash like a power bomb or something along those lines. I cannot take. I'll tell them straight up too. I think I've
Right.
28 years in the business. I think I've earned the fact that I could just say no, thank you. But yeah, it's like I could take anything where I go forward. Like I could take a suplex because a lot of it is landing on your feet
Right.
and your ass that way. Those bumps are cool for me. Hip tosses, body slams, stuff that's going forward, hurricanranas. But anything whiplashy, I just can't do it anymore. So yeah. Crazy,
So
right?
you were in fact the last match of ECW,
Yes.
at least the original, the non
Yep.
WWF WWE version. Did you know at the time that was the last ECW match?
Yeah, I did know. And not because Paul had told us. Everybody knew. We knew what was the last match in ECW. I mean, we weren't told formally, but we knew because Paul had, he said he was looking for other deals for television and so forth. And this was basically this. The reason we even did it was it was a show that was previously paid for upfront by a company. Like I think it was like the building itself had bought a show. From us, like Gary, like they gave us, let's say, I don't know what it was, but I think it was like $5,000 or $6,000. They paid us up front to put on this show for them, and they kept all the ticket sales. So it was like a paid show, is what they call it. You know that,
Yep.
So that was it, and at the end, I remember everybody came out to the ring. A lot of the guys and the gals from the locker room kind of celebrate. It being the last show, so yeah, everybody knew. We just weren't told.
Right. Now, after that, did you think that your career was over at that point, or did you think, oh, well, I can go to the WWF, WWE?
No, I knew. I mean, I kind of thought almost 100%, not to sound cocky or arrogant, that I would be going back to the WWE, because WCW, I had put out feelers, and I think Lance was still there, and they told Lance that they're not hiring anymore because things were starting to come across that they're selling the company. They were looking to sell. If you remember correctly, Bischoff was looking for a buyer because Turner wanted to drop WCW. That's how that started. So at that moment, they were not hiring anybody. So when I signed with the WWE, I called Jim Ross, and we talked, and I had no leverage. So that was the bad part, right? Because if WCW was still open for business, because that really changed the business for a lot of wrestlers. Because a lot of people, you go from having 3 promotions in the world, right, or in America, full-time, hiring full-time guys and gals to contracts. And literally in 1 year, you go from having 3 people, and now you have 1. It's like for soft drinks, imagine them having Coke, Pepsi, and, let's say Red Bull. I'm just throwing shit out there. Now you can only buy Coke. And that's it. Pepsi and Red Bull have gone away from soft drinks. A lot of people stayed behind and never recovered because of that. So I was very blessed to be there. And that happened for, a couple of reasons. I had a very good reputation, and I left on good terms with the WWE. Vince and I had always had a very good relationship, personal relationship. So I always thought I can get a gig down there. So, but it was just not done in the way I would have liked to have done it, unfortunately. But, you got to do what you got to do. And in that moment, you could not be very picky. Really,
Oh,
just happy to be there.
Right. So one of the things I'm want to do is it's called the Milo Beasley Show Frequently Asked Questions. I'm going to ask you the same 5 questions I asked to all my guests.
Sure.
Fun little questions. First question is,
sure.
Who is your first celebrity crush?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Oh man. Oh wow. Alyssa Milano.
Oh,
I
that's a good
think.
one.
Right
Knows the
when she was
vibe.
like in her, yeah, but when she was like, in her 20s, she started to do like some cool roles, some sexier roles. So I just
Right.
always thought she was a doll, and as she got older, she became very, very hot. So yeah, I always liked her for some reason.
I get the reason. Question number 2. What is your guilty pleasure song? Like, what song do you absolutely love, but maybe it's not the most popular, but you absolutely love it?
That's great. Kenny Rogers, Through the Years.
Oh, that's a good one.
Seriously, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was either it was a toss up between Kenny Rogers and Air Supply. Some easy
Spe-
listening.
speaking of music, real quick, I have to I put it out on Twitter before, but "Snap Your Finger, Snap Your Neck" is my favorite entrance music
Oh yeah.
song of all time. How did
Oh
you
wow.
get so lucky to get that song?
I did. I didn't put it together. That was another Paul Heyman creation.
Man, that song, I don't know what, man, it makes me, I don't want to say want to fight, but it really pumps me up,
It
man.
yeah, yeah. It certainly amps you up, and it's a perfect song, right? Especially "Snap Your Finger, Snap Your Neck," because my finishing move being the pile driver, the tombstone
Right.
pile driver, it makes total sense for the lyric. So
Yeah.
Heyman was great with that. I give him that credit. He was very good at that. Very, very good.
All right. That was a little sidetrack. Anyway, so question number 3. This is if you had to, if your life depended on it, would you
Yes.
rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Just one horse-sized duck, I guess, because
Yeah.
a lot of anything would be no good.
That's what I always say. I'd rather just try to fight
Yes,
the one because I mean, even like
right.
100 bugs, if 100 bugs get on you, like that's
100 of anything, right? 100 of anything is too much. Way
absolutely.
too much. Yeah.
Uh, question number 4. What is your favorite movie quote?
Oh wow. Favorite movie quote. I don't know. Let's just say something probably from Star Wars. I would say when Han Solo was about to be frozen in carbonite, Princess Leia says, she loves him, and he goes, "I know." I always thought that was like a badass Han Solo move. So yeah, I'll say that.
That is that's a great iconic line, but yeah, that's a badass move. All right, and then our last question is a finish the blank, and it is: I would be a millionaire if I had $1 every time.
Wow. If I had $1 for every time I said I was going to retire, I'd be a millionaire. I've had like 5 or 6 like promoted retirement matches. And the funny thing is, I mean it every time. That's like a shoot. I always mean it. Yeah, one of the most memorable was we did a show at the Starland Ballroom in New Jersey, which is very famous building. For punk rock music, regular
Right.
bands like historic bands have played there. Big wrestling companies have played there, and we sold it out. Right, we were the headliners, small indie promotion. We sold it out, billed it as the retirement match. Dreamer put me over. Really cool, and 6 months later, and I legitimately thought I was it, and then 6 months later, like somebody asked me to come in, and it was like a bigger promotion, right? And offering me really good money, so I was like, okay. It's always really hard. It's almost like God teasing you, because I never go really looking for it, but an offer will come up right out of
Right.
nowhere, It's like every time I think I'm out, they pull me right back in. So.
Oh, believe me, I know. Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right, then this brings us to what we call the Milo Beasley Show Top 5. Let's go random question. So I'm going to ask you top 5 bands that you've seen live in concert.
Okay. Linkin Park.
Okay.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Ooh, Jared,
Queen with Paul Rogers.
Yes, Queen with Paul Rogers. I always wanted to see,
Yes.
wanted to see them.
Very good. My friend Billy Corgan and the Smashing Pumpkins. And Kiss.
Of course. The greatest rock and roll band of all time.
Yeah, a lot of great concerts. Hoping to go this year and see somebody. I miss going to concerts.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I have to ask. I
Sure.
read, I don't know if I necessarily believe everything on the internet, but I kind of believe this one. It is that you are fluent in Portuguese.
I am. 100%.
That's amazing. Have you ever been in a scenario where, you listened in and heard somebody talking trash and you're like, let me just show up. No.
Well, what happened was in my life, my mom and dad immigrated to America in 1970. And I was born in 73. So what happened was, until I went to school, the first language I learned was English,
Right.
I mean, it was Portuguese, excuse me. So.
That's, yeah. So, that's a good language to have here, especially when you come to Florida. That's a good one. A good one to have. All right. So before we wrap up, where can folks find you on the social medias?
Sure. Both on Instagram and Twitter. Follow me at PJ Polaco, Polaco, and that's pretty much all I use is those two social medias. And if you're interested, ProWrestlingTees.com/Just Incredible. I have over 20 t-shirts out there, some retro stuff, some ECW-esque shirts out there, and some Aldo Montoya stuff as well. It's all there, so check it out. ProWrestlingTees.com/Just Incredible. You'll see some really cool stuff.
All right. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, man. I super appreciate it. Again, I started in '98, so ECW.
It's a long time ago too.
It was a long time ago, but I watched ECW at 2 a.m.
Right down there
on Fridays. And again, you were a big part of my influence when I was starting out in 98, 99. So again, I want to thank you for being a part of my life, and thank you for joining me here today.
It's my pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing that and telling. That makes me feel good, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man, no problem. And so thank you all for watching, and we will see you guys next week.